Hi, everybody. Back to you again. So, how's everything going? Good. Covering a lot of stuff. You covered forms last, I believe. You had some, I think, a couple of assignments due today, right? There was homework, lab 3 and 4, both due today. Okay. I checked this morning, it seemed like half of you hadn't turned it in. Is it due tonight at midnight or today at 12? Okay, well, I hope there were some last minute submissions there. You guys are really cutting it close. So let me give you a quick recap of what I was up to. So I was getting trained as a yoga teacher. And actually, I was already a yoga teacher, but there's kind of a specific type of training that they're offering where the focus is on health. So the question is, can you use, like, suppose somebody comes to you with a specific health condition, blood pressure, pain, something, can you apply the So it was pretty cool. This is one of the classes we had where we were learning how to adapt the yogic postures for people who can't get up and down from the floor very easily. So here we're adapting a posture for the chair. Cobra pose. I'm doing it on the floor, she's doing it on the chair. Anyone here been to a yoga class before? Anybody done anything like meditation? Cool. Well, helped me a lot. I may start offering a yoga class here. I'll keep you posted. Good for stress. Helps improve your quality of sleep. And a lot of other things. Okay. Any questions about that? What time do you think that you started? Probably around in the morning, like 10. What time is that? 10? Okay. Well, I haven't decided anything yet, but if you're interested, I'll ask you what time we work best. Okay, so a few announcements, some important dates that are coming up. The midterm is going to be 3 weeks from today, October 24th. Lab 5, I'm going to start with you guys today, and that's going to be due on next week, October 10th. And then homework 3, I believe, was already assigned to you. That was supposed to be due on Wednesday, October 10th as well, but I'm going to extend that to Friday, so that way we don't have 2 days. Okay, any questions about the dates? 12. Yeah. Okay. Here's our agenda for, yeah, go ahead. Yep. All right, so here's our agenda for today. We are going to continue the discussion of sessions. I believe Jason introduced sessions with you guys last time, right? We'll talk about sessions. Okay. So we're going to do a session challenge activity today. Then we're going to learn about databases. We're going to introduce relational databases, specifically MySQL. So we'll practice setting that up. So let me do a quick review on sessions. I know that Jason may have covered this already with you guys, but let's do a quick review on that. So why do we even need sessions? HTTP is stateless. So that means if you have, so if you think about your traditional client server model, how does the internet work, right? You have, draw a little picture here. So you have your bunch of computers that talk to each other, basically the internet. So one computer is your server. I think you could have more than one server, but generally there's like a central point of contact for a website, which is a server. And then you have multiple clients which may communicate with that server, sending requests. So for example, if I go to YouTube, the client types in youtube.com, maybe this another one types in youtube.com, and another client types in youtube.com. A lot of us are going to YouTube these days. Millions. There's going to be millions of computers all sending requests to youtube.com. And here we got YouTube. So the way this picture looks is you have all these computers sending requests to YouTube. Okay. And YouTube is going to do some logic for each of those requests and then send back a response. I'll put the responses in the that guy, and then so the picture is a little bit more complicated than this because this client, after the first request, may decide, oh, well, that was great. Let me watch another video. So the client's going to make another request. I'll put the second round of requests in green. Make another request. Now, YouTube doesn't actually remember anything from request number one. This is request number one. This is request number two. YouTube doesn't remember the client's previous request. So if I watched a video 10 minutes ago and then I request another one, YouTube doesn't actually remember that, oh, this person making a request just 10 minutes ago sent me another request for a different video. YouTube doesn't remember that automatically. Now that may not sound super important. You might think, well, what's the big deal if YouTube doesn't remember? Well, there is one important request that's made in the very beginning. So when you first go to YouTube, you might do something like log in. Right, so this all happens over HTTP as well. I'll put the login purple. When you first go to YouTube, you're going to send a request. YouTube asks you to log in, and this happens. And then from that point forward, when you make future requests, YouTube somehow remembers that, oh, Utsab already logged in, so I remember who he is. But with the way the internet works is it doesn't exactly make it easy for YouTube to remember this because each request is independent of the other requests. Somehow, with request number 2, YouTube needs to remember, like, oh, many requests ago, Utsab already logged in. And the reason for that is this request, it doesn't actually have any information about me. It doesn't. So, for example, in this request, the very first one, I'll call this request 0. There's some information I send to YouTube when I first log in. Anyone have any guesses what kind of information I sent to YouTube then? Not exactly what I mean. In terms of what the user consciously gives. Think about forms. There's one form that we tend to fill out when we first go to a website. Yeah. Username, password. Right. So when in the purple request here, when I first go to YouTube, I might send along some information like username and password. And then YouTube has some validation logic here on the server which says, oh, does this username password, is it legit? And if it's not, then it sends me back an error response which says, hey, you don't have to make your roots out, or you typed in the wrong password. Or if YouTube says, okay, your root's up, we believe you. And we'll believe you on all future requests. So how does that happen? Well, the reason why this is hard, or challenging rather, is say on request number 1 and request number 2, maybe 20 minutes later, I go to YouTube again. Well, I didn't fill out the form again. I didn't put in my username and password again. And so this request is being sent to YouTube 10 minutes later, and it doesn't actually have my username or password in it. That would be very inconvenient. If every time I made a request to YouTube, I had to type out my username and password again, that would be not a great user experience. And I don't have to do that. Somehow, even with request number 2 here, even though I don't send in my username and password, YouTube still remembers, oh, yeah, we know who you are. You sent us your username and password a long time ago. So how does that happen? HTTP doesn't support that in its request format. There's nothing in the request itself that has the username and password. This is where sessions come. You can actually use cookies or sessions. And actually, sessions are often implemented using cookies anyway. Did you guys talk about that? What's a cookie? What's a session? Okay. So I'm not going to go into that too much, but sessions will help. So under the hood, what's happening is on your client, you have something, a cookie, with some kind of session ID. And it would be like 234 something. And what happens is when I make the request on request number 1 and number 2, this session ID gets sent along with the request. So I'm going to underline that for this thing. I'll put this in. So this session ID gets sent along with the request. So in other words, here, we don't send along the username and password, but we might send along the session ID, 1, 4. So the request contains the session ID. And then on YouTube, there's some logic here. Put this in green. There's some logic which says, hey, you received session ID. Who does this belong to? And then YouTube somewhere has this giant list of ongoing session IDs, and it'll know, it'll have certain data associated with each session ID. Okay, Utsav logged into the session ID and so on. So at a high level, that's how YouTube remembers what I did a few requests ago. Okay, so that's kind of the overview. Let's actually walk into an example here. So we're going to do a challenge activity. This is what we're going to be leading up to. This is a it's a number guessing game. So you're going to write a program that, first of all, initializes the game with a random number between 1 and 100, and then it's going to ask the user to guess the number. And then, based on what the user types in, your program will print out a message, too high or too low. And it's also going to store your previous guesses. So for example, the last number I guessed is 42, and so it shows up here in my previous guesses. And then it will also store the number of attempts. There's also going to be a start over button. So if I click that, it erases everything. It gives me a different random number, clears my history, and sets number of attempts back to 0. Okay, so for this, you're going to have to persist your state somewhere. So you can use sessions. So I'm going to start you off. Let's walk through an example part of this together. And then I'm going to ask you to pair up and finish the rest of it on your own. Okay, let's see if I can make it a little bigger. Okay, by the way, if you want to see my screen a little bit better, you can log on to Zoom. I'm sharing my screen there. The link is on Island at the very top. Right here, link to top. Okay, but before I get into this too much, does anyone have any questions about material or any concept that we covered? Any requests as far as things I should do? Okay, so otherwise I'll assume that you've been following along pretty well with whatever Henderson has been teaching. Okay, but let me know if you think of anything. We can use some time to do that. Okay, so we're going to continue on with sessions then. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to plan this out a little bit. So let's write our plan as pseudocode. Right? So here's our plan. We first need to generate a random number. And then we're going to store it in the session so that it persists. Otherwise, if you don't store your random number in the session, every time they make a guess, the random number will change. They'll be trying to guess a moving target. Step 2. We'll need some kind of a form so that the user can enter their guess. Okay. Step 3 is you will need to have some kind of form validation logic. So you can kind of determine whether the guess is too high or too low. Step 4, you're going to have to store the history in the session. And step 5, we're going to have to clear the session. So remember, there's a button which says start over. So when the user clicks start over. Okay. So I'm going to walk through steps 1 and step 5. And then steps 2, 3, and 4, you can work on that with your parent. So let's start by, let's just get a basic HTML hello world page up. I'm feeling a little rusty. Let's make sure. Random number. Okay, so that's it. Let's see if that even runs. So I'm going to that. Okay, great. So we got our simple hello world message. I encourage you guys to test in baby steps. I know it adds some time, you have to pause and like reload your page, but it's super helpful in terms of helping you debug the program. You can write a little bit of code, test it. Write a little bit of code, test it again. So let's try to do step 1. Generate a random number, store it in this session. Okay. So maybe I don't remember how to do random. So what would I search for? PHP random number. That's relevant. Okay, so rand min max. So I would read this a little bit. It gives me a number between min and max inclusive. Okay, got it. So the inclusive part is important. So I want to generate a random number between 1 and 100. So let's start out by just creating a number, num, equals rand 1 to 100. Okay, and then here I can just echo it out. Echo no. Save and run it. Okay, 27. I reload the page, it's 34, 24, 20, and so on. So this is a step in the right direction, but it's not quite what we want because the number should remain constant for as long as the user is playing the game. So in order to solve that problem, we can store it in the session. So to start a session, let's look that up. PHP session. So remember, one of the steps for starting a session is you have to use this session start syntax. On every page that's going to benefit from the session, you have to do this. Am I seeing counterintuitive? Why am I starting a session every time? That's just how it works. You have to do session start in order to have access to the session on every page that benefits from the session. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. You guys talk about this? You did? So let's review it then. So I'll just put it right at the top. Whoops. Okay. So the logic is going to go like this. I'm going to check if I already have a number in the session. If I do, I'm not going to do anything because we don't want to erase that number. Only if there's no number yet, I'm going to generate a number and then add it to the session. So here's how that will work. If not is set, session, let's call it random val, then we are going to put this in there. So we're going to create this random value, but instead of assigning it to num, I'm going to delete that. And this is going to be session random val equals that. And then down here, I am, instead of echoing num, I'm going to echo the value. So let's try that. Okay, great. So now it changed the number once, but now no matter how many times I load the page, the number is fixed at 88. Now we're in position to create a game based on this. Now that we can fix the numbers, we can allow the user to make guesses against that number. Yeah. Oh, why is it not working? Okay, sorry. Let me take a look. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, thank you. There it is. Okay, so we got our random value to be fixed. Excellent. So that means we are done with step one. It is set. Yes, what does that mean? This is going to return true or false, depending on whether session has an actual value. So if, let me remove the not for a second. So if session random val has never been set before, so maybe it's the very first time coming to the page, then line 14 has never happened before. So therefore, basically, session random val is going to have something like null. It's just not even going to be defined. So if set session random val, in that case, what do you think it'll return? True or false? Well, since it's null, then is set is going to be false. It's basically asking, is it set? And so because it's null, it's going to say no, false. It's not set. So when we put the not in front of it, then it'll allow us to detect, okay, is it not set? But if it's not set, then we're going to set it here. Yeah. Yeah, this is a pretty common pattern in PHP. I mean, many web programming languages. You have some kind of validation check here. You check if your inputs are set, and if not, you do certain things. So definitely understand how this works really well. You should know how to reproduce this from memory. This is going to show up again. So there's a random number. We have done step 1. Let's also do step 5. Have you guys talked about how to clear a session? Yep. Okay, I see some people saying yes, some people saying no. So we're just going to do it together. First of all, let's look it up. So I would type in PHP session destroy, or you can type clear session or something. So let's, oh, the same article here. Okay, so you can either do session unset or session destroy. Let's just go with session destroy. So in order to make this work, I'm going to create a form. Let's say form method equals post. And this form is just going to have one button on it. So it'll be input type equals submit, name equals destroy, and let's give the value of destroy start over. Let me save that. Oh. Actually, I think I did it the wrong way. There it is. We start over. So this is our button, and now we're going to handle the logic somewhere. So we can check. So first of all, maybe I don't even remember. How do I even begin to do something like this? What PHP logic do I write to check if the button was clicked? Now, there's one starting point here, post. So I know it's post. What I'm going to do, since I don't know exactly how, if I click, how does that even impact my post variables? I'm just going to echo it out or print it. So print R. I'm just going to print out my post. This is just going to give me some information so that I can reason from that what to do next. So let's, okay. So what do we have here? This array, that's my post. It's empty because I haven't posted anything. I haven't clicked the form. Let's see what happens when I click the button. Look at that. Suddenly my post array has this thing in it. It has a destroy property with the value of start over. As soon as I click the button. Okay? So I'm going to use that as my flag to know whether they click the button. Okay? So here, I can check. So does anyone want to help me write this? It's going to involve the isSet command. It would be good practice. Do we have a brave volunteer to help me live code this? What should I write? That's okay. We'll do it together. So I'm going to say if, well, here's the thing. Maybe I don't know if it's isSet or not isSet. That can be a confusing thing sometimes. So I'm going to put both up here, and I'll just ask you guys which one is correct. So if isSet post, so I already forgot what it was. Let me go check. destroy. That's the name of my app. So destroy. Okay. Then I'm going to call session destroy. Okay. So now here's my question. Should it be, oops, should it be that or the option number 1 or option number 2? So I'm going to put a not. If it's not is set or is set, which one should it be? So why don't we take 30 seconds, discuss it with the person sitting next to you, see if you can reach a consensus. Which of these options should it be? And I'm going to call on somebody random. Do we have a random name picker? I'll use attendance. Okay, we'll talk about that. Remind me if I don't answer that question. That's a good one for the group. Okay, let's pause here. I'm just going to point to a random table. Okay, one going in the back. Somebody from this section, what would you think? Yes, it is option 1. Good job. So yeah, the way to think about it is it set? So in other words, did they click on the button? If you saw that only when they click on the button, the post variable is set. So checking whether it's set is a good indicator whether they click the button. So therefore, we're going to do it with option 1. Okay, so we had a question here. Remind me your name? Mike. Michael was asking, what's the relationship between this name destroy and how does, what was your question? How does it know? Yeah, this yeah, okay. So there is a relationship. That's a good question. It's an exact mapping. So whatever the name is, this name is basically the interface between the HTML and the PHP. If I were to change this to destroy food, this code would no longer work. I would need to change this to be destroyed food to match it exactly. Yeah. You know how I know that it's post? How do I even know that it's post? Why would maybe not? Why it could have been get? Why is it not that? Was that? Yes, exactly. Thank you. So it's this method here. Because it's post here, it's going to show up in the post variable. That's a good question. We'd have to experiment. We could probably find out pretty. Okay, so we have somebody saying it's not, so probably it's not. Well, it's not too hard to test it out. Just see what happens. Okay, so here we have our session destroy. Let's test it out. Let's see if it works. There's something slightly off about it. We'll see what happens. But I also have an error. Unexpected if, because I'm missing this. But actually, I can delete the print now because that serves its purpose. Save. Go. Random number is 88. Refresh the page, still 88. What happens when I click start over? Interesting. Now it's 73. I'm back to being 88. That's kind of a coincidence. Okay, now it's 56. If I click start over, notice how the first time I click it, it doesn't switch. But if I refresh the page though, it did switch. So there's something about the very first time it's clicked that's off. So I clicked it, it didn't change to 64, but if I refresh the page, it does change. So let's take a look at what happens the very first time I click destroy. So, did anyone see the problem? Why is it that the first time I click destroy, it still has the old number there? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, thank you. So when I click destroy, so at this point, I'm just going to write it here. User has already clicked this destroy. Well, even though the user has clicked destroy, I'm setting the random val to what it used to be anyway on the session. Or no, sorry. Oh, right. Okay, so here's what's happening. Is the user has clicked destroy. This logic happens, so it clears the session, but there's nothing here to regenerate the number. So what we need to do is put this logic afterwards. So now, if the user clicks destroy, okay, the session gets destroyed, and then you can regenerate the number right after. So let's try that. Save, and then enter. So it's 18, right? 18, 18, 18. If I start over, still gonna like that. Still gonna work the first time. Oh, there's another thing I need to do. I need to start the session again. So if I destroy the session, I need to start it again. So I can fix this by copying this down here, paste, and that should do it. Okay, so I'm going to click start over. Boom, one click, it works. Start over, I'm going to click it once. All right, change. Okay. All right, guys, so that was step 5. That's done. So now I'd like for you to take the next, let's say 20 minutes, and try to finish steps 2, 3, and 4 with a pair. If you don't have a pair, you join another pair and form a group of 3. All right, let's get started on that. Yeah.
If you were to try to ignore the solution, how
When you reload the page, it asks you. As far as I know, that's a browser level decision because there's actually some really dangerous things that can happen if people unknowingly resubmit forms as opposed to if you put in credit card information. So that is probably beyond your control of the program. But I actually don't know that. There might be a way, but I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, so I'm just going to come around. Just going to make sure everyone's paired up and working on this. Yeah. Instead of hitting, yeah, it is probably reload. It's actually the reload is resend. So the last one sent is started. Okay, let's see on number 50 here. Are you guys paired up? Okay, now you. Yeah. Even though you didn't click the button. Right? So you're wondering why it keeps changing every time. So I'll show you that it won't change if you go back to your browser. Instead of hitting reload, you see how it's going to keep on it. And now hit reload. Go ahead. But the reason why it's changing it is because it's start over. Well, what Google does is it's the button. So when you start over, it's just going to reset. So, in addition, only yeah. Okay, part of the problem. Can you show me what you did again? Can you go back to the type of So what's happening is when you hit this, the start over button is going to push. And so it says it to start over. So the strategy is to you have it separate. Although, let me show you where it is. Do you have my slide? Okay. So this is what you have to do. So I would do something that way All right, guys, we're going to take about 5 more minutes for this.
So basically, you have a page, what you can do here, you will say, post and post and then here's the guy. It's you don't have to like do sessions for talking. like a little lower now.
Okay. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. I'm curious, can you, just to do a temperature check, can you give me a fist of 5? 5 means you're done. This means you're totally lost. Somewhere in between you're going. Hold your hand. Okay, pretty good, nice. Okay, so see a couple of folks were done. Would you care to share what you did? Anybody who finished? If not, I can walk through my screen. You want to share? Okay, so are you on the Zoom? Okay. Can you get on the Zoom quickly?
Share. Yeah. That's the one. Yeah, share now. Is it share? And then there we go. Is it? Do you get to see all that? Yeah. You see me going into this?
Yeah.
Okay.
See if you go to that.
Okay.
Got it.
So, yeah, maybe if you want to walk through it, how did you
Sure.
put it up?
I mean, so the
Protected work.
Oh yeah. So the first if statement's checking if like the actual it's checking if the array we're making for a session variable guesses is set yet. And if it's not set, then you make an array. And also when there's another sessions variable we made that's the counter, which is the amount of times you played or guessed. Then right below that, it's checking if the actual input text box for the form is set. And then
That's
if it
line 9, right? You're checking.
Yes, line 9, yes. And then after that, you push the array push the contents of the guess text box to the array for the session, and then you increment the session counter.
Yep.
And then we have another if after that for the destroy that we all did together, and the random number. Those ones we already did together.
Okay, so you got that looks good so far.
And then this is the form post with the guess, enter guesses.
Okay, so one thing I'll point out, notice how they have 2 forms, right? So that's the one form for the input, and there's the other form down below. Let me see my annotation in a second. So they got this form here. Oh, you can't see this. Oh, you sort of can. Okay. We got this form here, and then another form up here. You can totally have 2 forms on the same page. Very common pattern. Right? Okay. Oh, thank you. So carry on.
Okay, so then, yeah, there's the first form with the text box and the enter for submit. And then we have another PHP segment with our like if and else ifs for checking if for the too high, if it's not set. So we have like a not set for the first one, so it won't display anything. And if it is set, it will just check if the guess is greater than, less than, or equal to. It'll display high, low, correct.
Yep, very good.
And then the very
finally,
bottom.
here, you print out the history.
Yeah, and then that's the print of everything. And then the last form with the destroy button.
Nice. Okay, let's give them a hand. I'm going to give some feedback here.
Okay.
So if you scroll up, this counter thing, you actually don't need an extra variable for the counter.
Okay.
So if you scroll down, go to where you print it out. You can get the same information by using the count.
Count on the array function. Okay, yeah.
So you don't have to maintain 2.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
And the other thing I would say, have you guys learned functions yet in PHP?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this kind of a thing here, where you're just inserting a bunch of PHP logic into your HTML, it can often make your code hard to read.
Okay.
And so what I'd recommend is take all this, make a function, maybe call it print feedback, and then you can just call the function right here.
Okay.
That way clean up
Yeah, that way it won't be, it'll be smaller. Yeah.
Same thing here for history. You can have another function called print history.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So let me start sharing this thing again. Okay. Let me show you quickly what I mean by that. So if you look at my solution here, I have a function called print feedback and another function called print history. And so up here, print feedback basically does what you were doing. And print history also does what you were doing.
Okay.
And then my HTML section here looks a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's take a quick break. 5 minutes. We'll come back at 1:20. 3 minutes. Take a 3-minute break. Go walk around, go to the bathroom. Yeah. No question, yeah. Yeah. Okay. I will make sure you put a valid word. Remind me of your update. All right, guys, so we're going to resume. So next on our agenda, we're gonna introduce Lab 5. Introduce Lab 5. This is the shopping cart lab with sessions. Let me open that up. Scroll down. Okay, here you go. Lab 5 shopping cart tutorial. The submission portal is not up yet, but you can start going through the tutorials here. Okay, so let's walk through this. I'm just gonna start you guys off here. But we're not gonna spend too much time on this today in class. So we're gonna implement the shopping cart using sessions. So first of all, if you think about it, shopping carts are a great example of when sessions are useful. Often a shopping cart will have multiple pages, right? So similar to kind of the example we saw here in the very beginning, let me just draw it again here. So you have a server and a client. Maybe you're on Amazon.com, so you're going to the Amazon server, and so this is your client. So maybe you do a bunch of requests. Client adds one item to the shopping cart, and then a few minutes later, the client adds another thing. Maybe you see a iPad or something. You put that on there, and then put another item. So again, the problem is that in pure HTTP, this is stateless. So request number 3 doesn't remember what happened on request number 1. So how does Amazon keep track of what items have been added to the shopping cart? Well, you can imagine that there might be some logic that says, okay, initialize the session, check if your shopping cart is empty. If not, then just make an empty shopping cart. And each time they add an item, there might be some code that says, okay, just add it to the session shopping cart array. So in this lab, you're going to implement a shopping cart. Let's take a look at what we have. Here's a completed version of the project. Let's see if it works. So you'll notice you can search for things. So there's all these items. So where are these items coming from? We're actually going to use the Walmart API to get items from their database. So then you can add things to the shopping cart. So here you notice button changes to added. And notice we have shopping cart 1 at the top. You can add another thing, and it says shopping cart 2. And if I click here, it shows your shopping cart item 2. Okay, so let's see if we can, let me just get the setup up and running. So I'm going to create a folder in my Cloud9 workspace called fcart. Okay, got fcart. And then let's download the zip file. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna need to extract this. There we go. Now I can upload this. Oh, I guess that is another one. Okay. Put it here. Okay, there we go. So I have my 3 files, index.php. You see it sets some stuff up for you, scart.php. And check this out. This is a pretty crazy looking file. This is the code. We've written this for you. This automatically makes the API request to Walmart. So we can test that out. Let's run this. Let's run index.php. And there it is. So it's not going to do anything right now because you have to write this code. But this is basically the setup. So you see there's, let's see what we have. Index.php. This should have our form on here, the user form. And the user types in their query, so it's name query. And then let's see where that gets handled. It should get handled in the same file. So your job is going to be to write the PHP to handle this form logic. And eventually it will use the wm-api.php file to make a request directly to Walmart. So this API key is interesting. You always want to make sure, is this actually a valid API key? We can test this out by, I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to put it directly into my browser. Let's see if it actually works. So let's have bird. And look at that, we actually get a bunch of JSON back for our birds. So this tells you, yes, the API key is valid. You don't need to worry about this part. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say for this lab. You can start going through that. And again, it's due on Wednesday, next Wednesday. So let's see. Yep, this is a pretty hefty one, about 20 pages. But there's a lot of boilerplate code written for you. So 20 pages go by pretty fast. But it's a pretty complex app, the shopping cart. So if you learn how to build this, you'll understand how to build many things. Shopping carts are one of those things where it's hard from a development point of view and a design point of view, because we kind of take this for granted. There's so many shopping carts, but they're designed in a certain way to have a certain effect on the user. Even if you go to a design school, this very common design problem they'll give you at some point is design a shopping cart, and so you have to justify why you have X number of pages, why it's designed this way. You might have noticed in the past, Amazon has gone through so many iterations of their shopping cart. They have one click, they have this, they have that. So it's all designed they want it to be a really great experience for you. If it's in any way inconvenient, that's like affects their bottom line. So shopping carts are pretty critical. Might seem kind of boring, but that's where almost every site, any kind of e-commerce site, will have a shopping cart. Okay, so that's all. We're gonna move on to a different topic. Any questions about this lab or concerns? Okay, so you can work on this on your own. Okay, now we are going to move on to another topic here. Okay, so we're about to jump into relational databases. Relational databases solve the stateless HTTP problem in a really powerful way. In a way, you could say this is the ultimate solution as far as how do you persist data. So sessions are great. I mean, you can store things. It's often temporary. A user can clear their session using the session to be destroyed. You can also go to your browser and destroy the session yourself by using all your cookies. You guys know how to do that? Have you ever done that? If you go to your browser, you do a little experiment here. This is my challenge 2. I can put in some attempts. Okay. It's storing all this stuff in the session. We saw one way to destroy your session was in PHP. You can call session destroyed. But you can actually do it in your browser also. Let's see if this works. We go to more tools, clear browsing data. If I were to do cookies and other site data, this will probably clear it. But it's going to be very annoying for me if I do this, because it'll basically log me out of every site that I'm doing. So I don't think I want to do this right now. But theoretically, if I were to press this button and then I go back to this page, it's probably going to wipe everything. Now let's get it. Okay, now if I reload the page, oh no, it's still here. Okay, let me get back to you on this one. Let me investigate what's actually happening. I think possibly our PHP is not interacting with the browser. It can also be a cache situation. In my cache also. Nope, that works just fine. Okay, forget what I said. I could be wrong about something there. Let me double check that and make sure that the code is doing what I need. But anyway, sessions can be cleared. So in many ways, you could say it's a temporary way to persist data. But with databases, this is much more permanent. So let's talk about, well, actually, we're going to introduce databases a little bit more thoroughly next class. But what I'd like to do in this class is at least start the setup process for MySQL and PHPMyAdmin. PHPMyAdmin is going to be our database administration tool that we're going to use to inspect what's going on in our MySQL database. So this setup can be kind of a pain sometimes. So I want us to get started on it now so that if there are any problems, we can resolve it by starting the class. So we're going to find the instructions on the iLearn over here, installing MySQL and PHPMyAdmin. Okay, so let's start by installing MySQL. So you can copy that command, and I'm going to go to my Cloud9. And I don't think it matters where you put this in, but it has to be in your terminal. So I'm just going to paste it right here. Enter. Okay, so I already have it installed, and that's okay. I'll just wipe everything. You don't need to do that though if you already have it installed. Okay, if it's already installed, then you're fine. So I think we're fine. Let me just. SQL. Okay, so if you type MySQL -- version, then you should see something here to let you know that it's installed. So here I have version 14.4. Okay, so let's try to start MySQL then. Okay, so now it should be started. So it's not enough to have MySQL installed, right? You have to actually start the service. All right, let's look at the next site here. Okay, so we got MySQL. Now we're going to install PHPMyAdmin. So to do this, we're going to manually upload the files. First, we'll download them from the website. So we want to get the tar.gz file. You can click on this. Oh, the website is linked on the document. Yeah, let me show you one more time. This is on iLearn. If you go to this suite, it's this document right here, showing MySQL. Okay, so you want to click here to get to the website, and then we're going to get the tar.gz file. So I'm going to show you a special command you can do in command line. You're just going to copy the link address. Copy. I'll show you again. Right-click, copy link address. And then going back to Cloud9, you can type wget and then paste the URL. Okay, so how do we know this works? If you go into your view here, you should see right here, phpMyAdmin-4.83. Your file should end with a .tar.gz. If it doesn't end with a .tar.gz, you got the wrong file. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to run this command, tar-xzzf, kind of like the equivalent of extracting or unzipping, but for a tar file on Linux. So we're going to do tar -xzzf, and then the name of the file, phpMyAdmin, so on. Okay, and by the way, if you're not aware of this, you don't have to type it all out. If you just type the first few letters and hit tab, it auto-completes it. Okay, so now I'm going to hit enter, and we see it's doing some extraction. I actually already have it installed. I'm just going to delete my old one. Okay, so now you should have a file that looks like this, a folder. So now you want to rename it to just PHPMyAdmin. Okay, so that's it. To unzip it, you mean? It's on the document right here. tar-xcdf and the name of the file. So for me, it was, I'll show you again. It looked like this, tar-xcdf, and then okay, so you should have a folder named phpMyAdmin on your Cloud Navigator. Okay, so yeah, and then you rename the file to phpMyAdmin. Okay, so now to run this, you're going to open. There's one more step that's missing from here. Actually, you have to actually run. Actually, it may just work. Let's try going there. Let's go. No, actually, something needs to be running. Yeah, go ahead. No, in fact, it should not be in any Git repository. If you put this in a folder that is part of a Git repository, what's going to happen is it'll add all of your phpMyAdmin folder files to your Git repo. You don't want that. Okay, so a good hint is just put it in the top level folder. In fact, it should be in your top level folder. So wherever it is, it should be just right there in the parent directory. Okay, so now let's test this out. You can actually go, you can open up phpMyAdmin, the folder. We're going to look for a file called index.php. Right here. So again, I'll show you where that is. So open your phpMyAdmin folder, scroll down to a file called index.php, and then you can just run this. Okay, so notice how this URL, HTTP, whatever, it matches what we have here in the tutorial, right? Well, it's similar. We'll see they're actually the same. We'll try them. Oh, it was not found. Okay, let's hold on. There it is. Okay, so here we are. We are about to log in to our here it is. Even if I remove the index.php, it should still work. See, so this URL matches what's here. Okay, I'm going to pause here. Let's make sure we all have this. So take a look at your neighbor's screen, see if they have this or not. If not, try to help them out. Okay. Can I get a thumbs up if you have this screen? Okay, there's like 2 people here. Do you guys not have the screen yet? So we're going to see. Okay, no problem. Okay, can you show me one more time? Give me a thumbs up if you have it. Okay, so about 80% of you have it. Okay, so if you don't have it, it's really important you get it set up by the start of next class. The next class, we're really going to hit the ground running with databases. You don't want this to slow you down. Okay, so we're going to continue on here. Let's try to log in. So it says, after installing PHPadmin, you'll be given a URL to access it. We know what that URL is. The URL will have this pattern, if you saw that. On the login screen, type your C9 username and leave the password field empty. Click on Go. You can also type in root as your username. So what's my C9 username? I actually don't remember. I think it's just Utsab. So let's type Utsab. And no, it's Uts. Okay. And I can just leave this blank. So let's go. Okay. How long without a password is forbidden? That's interesting. So I must have some kind of configuration sets. Here's what we're going to do. There's a file called, I forget what it's called. It's this one, config.sample.inc.php. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this file so you can duplicate it. And then we're going to rename it to just be config.inc.php. Okay. And down here, you see this on line 33, there's a configuration called allow no password, and it's set to false. That means it does not allow you to log in without a password. So we're going to set that to true. Save it. Okay, so now if I go back, I think, let's give it a try. Oops. Oh, cannot log into the MySQL server. Well, at least we're getting a different error now. Okay, I actually had MySQL set up already. I'm wondering how many people were able to log in. Oh, so I'm the only one with the problem. I see. So you're getting the same error? Okay, so we'll pick up from this point next class. If you log in, that's great. If not, we'll go over this again next class.
Okay.
It did? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think I know why I couldn't log in. So I think you all can log this in.